We have 6 policy proposals to get through. 6 more. We have just over 6 hours to do it in. So about an hour per proposal, and we'll have a good time. But if you folks want to leave here before 10 o'clock at night, we're probably going to need to do 10, 15 minutes per proposal, which means I need people to get up and say their name, their affiliation, I support the proposal, thank you, and sit down, or my name, my affiliation, I don't support it, and here's why, and I need you to get terse and succinct, because we don't need people describing their life story and how that interfaces with a policy proposal. We really need people to express what's wrong with it and whether it can be fixed or whether there is no fixing it. It's you. You folks have control of this. We probably will go a little past 5 o'clock. I hope not to go too long, but let's get started. So it is 2014-20, transfer policy slow start and simplified needs verification. And take it away, Kevin.
Hello, everybody. So this policy is a fairly large policy. It's the actual policy itself is 4 slide decks. Wow. And what I'm going to try to do is not go through it verbatim, word by word. It is a draft policy. What I'd like to get from you is your input. This policy works on 8.3 and 8.4, section 8.3 and 8.4. I'd really like to get your input. Based on discussion we've already had on the PPML, discussion at the PPC, there is a lot of simplification that we'd like to see. If there are areas that you think should go, I'd love to hear it. If there are things you think should absolutely stay, I'd love to hear it. If you think this policy overall is in the right direction, by all means, please let us know. But this is another way of dealing with transfers and looking at the situation with transfers and how we can better deal and make it more efficient and easier for people coming to the market, for people coming to the transfer policy once run out really occurs, okay? So part of this is in relation to new organizations that are having difficulty qualifying for initial slow start. This is related to now customers having problems getting space from their upstreams where that was not a problem before, okay? It's in relation to organizations that grow very rapidly under slow start, continually having to deal with that, okay? Existing organizations with regular growth, getting the right size block, which might in some cases mean doing multiple transfers. You need a 16, but all you can get is 18, allow for it multiple times. And I'm going to explain, because there's some stuff in the staff report as well related to this, but that was mentioned as well. Organizations with a very large growth rate, same thing with the transfers, okay? So let's go over this in a very short amount of time. This text would replace 8.3, okay, and get rid of the, not get rid of per se, but change the 24-month and add in a whole bunch of stuff. So let's go. New orgs, end sites, end users, which do not currently hold any space. Okay, so new entrants, and they can demonstrate 50% immediately by what they have, will immediately qualify for a transfer based on a 24, an ISP 21. Now this was based on the old NRPM. So what we were looking at doing was removing out the 24 and 21 and just saying whatever your 50% immediate utilization is, you qualify for that, that space as an example. Existing orgs, prior to qualifying, you must demonstrate 80% based on Section 4, okay? Once you've demonstrated that you're at 80% based on Section 4, everything now is based on what is in this policy. And this is aggregate, by the way. This is not your last block. This is not the 4th block back. This is just 80% aggregate across the board. Keep it simple. Any organization that qualifies under the sections will be approved for transfer. Let me see where the, you get a total amount. You don't need additional justification. It's cumulative. If you do an M&A transfer, then that amount would change based on you now having applied for getting new blocks. Organizations, for rapid growth, this is very important. Organizations may be approved for the transfer of additional address space equal to 24 times the organization's calculated average monthly use. That calculation allows you to look back 3 to 12 months from the date of the current request, which is a very different model than we have today. Right now we have a forward-looking 24 months sort of policy in the transfers. In a rapid growth scenario, you can come to ARIN and say, in the last 3 months, I've used a lot of space. Extrapolate that out for my next 24 months. Make it simple, okay? You can return space. I know that it sounds kind of odd these days that you could return space. People just don't see it, but this allows for you to return space, and you can then take that and remove it out of your monthly usage calculation. M&As are taken care of, and then what we've done is in 8.4, it's basically the exact same text, so there's no differences really between an 8.3 and an 8.4 transfer. So the first question is, do you support decoupling 8.3 and 8.4 transfers from standard 4.x requirements? You still need to show that you're at 80% under 4.x, but at that point, everything else now moves into Section 8 as far as from a calculation point of view, okay? So if we can, if people do want to come up to the mics, if you have any questions, if you want to talk about what portions of the sections you support, if there's overwhelming support or whatever it may be, do we want to continue, how do we continue, etc. This is very different from 14, so I'd love your input on that.
Can we get the audio?
Testing, there we go. Matt Petak, Yahoo. I think this one is on the right track compared to 14. I think looking back for the fast start is a nice idea. This feels really weighty, complex. It's, as you say, 4 pages of material. I have a lot of concerns with the number of clauses, and as the legal assessment said, there's a lot of complexity involved. I'm giving nominal support for the concept. I'm not sure that as it currently stands, though, it's in the right place.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, here. Marla Azinger, Frontier Communications. No support. I don't see this solving a problem. I believe recent changes made in September removed roadblocks to new ISPs and end users. Changing the transfer policy is not needed. As a person who has assisted with multiples of market transfers, I did not experience a problem like this proposal alludes to. ARIN staff already approves multiple transfers if a request falls within a growth pattern. If the request exceeds the set growth pattern, then the review of usage with growth plans will support the new larger transfer request and it will be granted. Now, if someone is totally full of it and they're sorry. I'm not me. I'm reading from Marla Azinger. Now, if someone is totally full of it and they are actually trying to hoard 5 years worth, then yeah, it's going to get denied. So in review, I don't see a problem needing resolved by this proposal. What I do see here between the lines are 2 things. 1, some community members might wish to increase the 24-month plan to a larger size, like maybe 36 or 48 months like originally put forth years ago, but that would be a new proposal. 2, M&A transfers are a lot of work for those actually purchasing an entity. I have personally worked neck deep on at least 5 of these. The addressing, as I have witnessed myself, can be all over the place, and the transition is painful with initial customer loss. Then after 4 to 5 months has a rebound and massive growth spurt. In addition, the records and transition of that address space can take sometimes a year or more to straighten out. Honestly, I think M&A transfers just need to be let loose from the noose. ARIN policy has unknowingly been written into a strangling point that can possibly damage a company when all ARIN really needed to capture was a scenario where no customer base existed and IPs were being purchased with a company name, and that was it. And now, 3 years later, we have a transition policy that takes care of that. So in summary, I see slimming down the M&A policy for everyone being needed. At most, a year grace period should be given to a transferred entity before a requirement to display usage.
So two things. The first I should mention is this does not touch the 8.2 M&A transfer at all. The second thing is after the text was frozen so that the community could look at it and we could get the guides printed, etc., the staff and legal came out. And two things came out of the staff and legal, two very important things from staff. The first was that slow start is not used as a criteria for an 8.3 transfer. So that all of those aspects of this proposal will get removed. The second part to this was that multiples are allowed. So the concern in this policy about not being able to do multiple transfers to handle a need or a transfer approval is not actually the case as well. So there's definitely lots of text, as was mentioned, that can actually be stripped out of this proposal, and we can start to get to the heart of it, which is looking at your rapid growth, the look back, which doesn't really get taken care of today, and calculations like that to make it easier. Anyway. Donnie?
Donnie Roisman with SoftLayer. So I think this is I appreciate how this started. I think it's a valiant effort, especially for new entrants who could definitely find the whole process intimidating. I think someone mentioned earlier today that they find themselves part of their consulting business is helping people with their ARIN requests. That's all they do for that one person, maybe helping with their ARIN requests. So yeah, it's definitely a difficult process. As Marl had mentioned, of course, it'd be difficult during an M&A process, et cetera. But I think we're going about it the wrong way. I think we're adding more policy to help make policy less intimidating or less complex. I've mentioned it before. I think the right way of doing it is just removing the barriers for all transfers. I think we have a pretty decent amount of data that we can collect from RIPE, who has run a barrier-free transfer functionality for a while now. So we can see how many new entrants have come in and have transferred in, and how much hoarding has occurred, et cetera. And I lost my third train of thought, so I may come up again as I listen to you.
Are you in favor or opposed to this proposal?
Okay, so thank you. I'm completely opposed to this proposal because I think we are doing it the wrong way, and I think we should make a much simpler proposal that simply does away with 8.2, 8.3's need-based.
So with respect to this proposal, you're against it. Is there any way it could be changed so you'd be in favor of it?
I don't see a way this can be changed. I think it has too much in it that I'm opposed to. Thank you.
Thank you. Owen?
Owen DeLong, Black Lotus Communications. I speak in favor of abandoning this proposal. There is no change that could be made to make it palatable. It basically attempts to rewrite Section 4 and decouple Sections 8.3 and 8.4 from Section 4 when back in the days we advisedly put the coupling into 8.3 deliberately and subsequently 8.4 for very good reasons. The problems that we're now seeing expressed with Section 4 should be addressed by modifying Section 4 and not by decoupling 8.3 and 8.4 from Section 4, making allocations and assignments different from transfers to any degree larger than the amount of time has not had any really good logic put forth behind it, and I don't see a reason to do it.
Thank you. Martin?
Hi, Martin Hannigan, Akamai Technologies. I'd like to just echo Donnie Roseman's comments. I think that what we really should be focusing on is eliminating needs testing altogether. I'm not in support of this proposal. It's way complicated. My head melted just trying to read it sitting here today. But I wanted to point out one section in particular. 8.3.1.2, where you talk about things like held equipment, current customers, or customer orders. there seems to be a trend with policy that, in my opinion, is starting to cross the line with respect to interfering with our businesses. And I mean this in a good way, my competitors and my customers are on the ARIN-AC, and submitting this information to the staff is one thing. Having this stuff written into policy is a whole nother story, and I think we should try to avoid that in the future. But I'm opposed to the policy regardless. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty.
Jason Schiller, Google, and ASOAC. Is this? Okay. Sorry. All right. So as the originator of this policy, I'm going to apologize for its omnibus nature. I do also hate omnibus policies, but I felt it was needed. And the reason why it's an omnibus policy is because it's trying to do a lot of things. It's trying to do 3 different distinct things. The first thing it's trying to do is it's trying to support slow start in a transfer market. We had heard from staff concerns in previous meetings that slow start with regard to the transfer market would be an issue. So it was trying to establish a way to do slow start in the transfer market. It was also trying to, in some sense, make immediate need less difficult, but also give it teeth at the same time. So what it was trying to do with immediate need was, rather than compel you to deploy within 30 days, which I've heard from a lot of operators that have end sites, that this is impossible for large organizations, for large address holdings, and that they simply just don't comply with it. I wanted to give something that had teeth, that was enforceable, something that ARIN could look at and measure and make a decision. So that was changed. There was a calculation as to whether we should simply make all of these changes in Section 4 and let Section 8 refer back to Section 4. I personally thought it was more contentious to change the rules in Section 4 with ARIN allocations and assignments because we are so close to the end of the game, and it felt like changing the rules of the game. But if that's what the community wants, I am very happy to take that back and rewrite these changes into Section 4 and make Section 8 lean and slim and say that it's everything in Section 4 with a few exceptions. I'm happy to do that. The other thing that this policy was trying to do was it was trying to make it easier for people to justify and get space and to have a predictable result. So what we did was this simple doubling. You have to prove that the space you've got you're using, and that shows that you have need for additional space. And if you can do that, then you can simply double and get another size block that's equivalent to what you're currently holding. So if you're holding a /16, it's more than 80% utilized, you can qualify to transfer 1 or more blocks up to the equivalent of a 16. The problem with this approach is it penalizes people that are growing more rapidly than that. People that haven't been growing for a long time and now suddenly have a new product and they're on a steep curve. So the third thing this policy tried to address was to deal with people that had rapid growth. And the way it did this was basically take a look-back window, measure what your run rate is, give you a 2-year supply. So in short, the policy is trying to do 3 separate things. And I felt that we needed to do all of them together because if only one of these things passed, it would be unfair. So I apologize for the omnibus nature.
Jason, I have a question for you. This is in draft. The AC could go off and completely rewrite this. But my sense is that, personally, my sense is that we'd rather have you come back with some new ideas than try to do something on your behalf that doesn't necessarily jive. So do you have a preference either way? Is it better to come back with 3 smaller proposals for the community, or to have the AC really dive into this? And I don't know if that's doable or not.
I am happy to accept a laundry list of changes that the AC thinks would make this policy palatable, that the AC thinks is what the community is looking for, and I can rework it and send it back.
Thank you. So just to close this, if there's anybody who is in support, please come up to the mic, and otherwise I think we're good. Thank you.